Banfield starts now.
Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Nice to have you here on a Tuesday night. I have something special for you. I have something that is special, but really hard to process. And that is because I'm going to take you down a trip down memory lane. I have dug into the archives because I think you need to see the archives before tomorrow happens. I know that sounds weird. Here's why. Susan Smith has a parole hearing tomorrow after being locked up for 30 years. And if you are like me, this age, you remember these pictures. You remember back in the 90s when that lady right there went to the microphone and said all these things about a black man took my babies. A black man carjacked me and took my babies. When in fact, she'd actually rolled her own babies, strapped in their car seats into a lake, and they drowned. But she had us all hoodwinked for days upon days, and man, was that a story. And it was just as big a story when suddenly they said, oh, no, it was her, and we've arrested her. But we are going to take you inside these moments and show you tape that you probably have never seen. All this effort, the Oscar-worthy performance. Please help me find my babies. Help me. We also have something else, something that the investigators did. They strapped a camera to the exact spot where those babies were so that you could see their perspective. And I'm going to show you tonight that exact tape. They played it for the jury so that the jury would see how long those children were in that spot, in those car seats, watching this happen. I'm going to play all that for you, but I am going to warn you if if you find that stuff hard, if it's triggering and all the rest, this is definitely not the show for you. I rarely tell you to turn the channel, but I'm okay. I get it. But that is important stuff because tomorrow we're going to decide if she should walk among us to the Piggly Wiggly. Right? So that's important stuff. Also, I got another Diddy update. A whole bunch of cases have been filed against him again tonight. I don't even know how many we're at now. I've lost count. But the bigger story might be what happened in court today. His prosecutors got a big old smackdown. Turns out the raid on his cell at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, the judge did not like that. The judge did not like what they found in the raid and has told the prosecutors an uncertain moment of whoop-ass. I'm going to tell you exactly what happened, and then I'm going to describe for you the cell that they raided. And it's not really a cell, it's like a block, and his bunk, and what was on the bunk, and how tiny the mattress is, and how they don't get pillows, and how close he is to his neighbor sleeping and snoring right next door. I got that all from the inside coming up. And then Lori Vallow is back in the news, and it's a bit weird this time. I know you already know. She's serving life in prison for murdering two of her kids, murdering the wife that was married to the dude she wanted to marry and eventually did once that wife was dead. I know you know that. But she's also up for another couple of murder charges, right? And attempted murder charges of the guy who was divorcing her niece and the murder of her fourth husband before she got that fifth husband. Guess what's happening in Arizona on that? Lori is kind of, is it fair to say playing crazy? She's certainly playing incompetent, or is she really incompetent? So what's a prosecutor to do if you're not competent? Can you force the competency into you through a needle? I'm going to talk to the people who tried for years and years to do that to the kidnapper and rapist of Elizabeth Smart, because he pulled the same stuff. Not competent for trial for the better part of a decade. That guy is here tonight to tell you how that game is played. Okay. Let's start here, though, because it's been a while since Susan Smith has eyeballed the produce section at the Piggly Wiggly. It's been a while since Susan Smith went to the movies or done anything normal. It's been a long while, been 30 years. Not since she murdered her two little boys, 3-year-old Michael and 14-month-old Alex. And then tried to make us all believe that a fictitious black carjacker did that, took those babies from her. Big tears, without water. For 30 years, Susan Smith has sat in a South Carolina prison cell, waiting for her chance to do normal things like the rest of us. And that chance, very slim, but nonetheless real, is now just less than 24 hours away. Tomorrow, for the first time, Susan Smith is going to ask a parole board via Zoom from her prison to let her go free. It is a 7-member board. 1 seat is vacant right now, and Smith needs 4 of those votes. They all have to say, all 4 of them, yeah, I think we should let her out. And if you wonder what I mean by a very slim chance, we did a little digging. A NewsNation affiliate looked at 491 cases that this very same parole board heard in August and in September. And it granted parole to exactly 13 people out of 491 cases. So yeah, slim. Tonight I want to show you exactly what it is that got Susan Smith locked up back in 1994. Evidence you may have never seen before. And a warning again, this is really hard to watch. It was brutal for the jurors to watch. You will be seeing the view from Michael and Alex's car seats in the back of Susan's car as she rolled that 4-door Mazda sedan into the John D. Long Lake with her little boys still strapped in the car seats inside. For Smith's trial, the investigators did something both ingenious and macabre. They placed video cameras inside and outside Susan's actual car, and they recreated her murderous act from the vantage point of the little boys sitting in those back car seats. Tonight I'm going to replay one of those tapes for you. It took a full 6 minutes for that car to sink. The version I have for you is edited down to about 3 minutes of rising water, diminishing air, and slow motion murder. Eventually, Smith did come clean and admit that she was behind this unbelievable view. You can see the water coming up the hood now. It's slow, but it's not slow if you're the little kid in the back wondering, where's Mom? She admitted it, but not before taking the whole country on a roller coaster ride of, I'm not going to sugarcoat this, racist bullshit. The whole nation was watching. And Susan Smith made up a story about a, quote, black guy who carjacked her. Carjack was a relatively new term back then, I will add. But she went with it. I'll pause here because now you can see the water coming up in the front seat, coming up over that dash now, making its way pretty high up in the back seats too. So carjacking, yeah, it was new. We hadn't heard a lot about carjacking. But she said the black guy got in the car, pointed a gun right at her side, and eventually forced her out of the car and drove off with her two crying sons in the back seat. This back seat that is now probably at their heads. That's how fast this happened. The truth was that Smith wanted to run away with another man. It was a guy who didn't have a whole lot of love for kids, didn't care for kids. Certainly didn't want her 2 little kids tagging along. It's nothing less than jaw-dropping to watch her interviews with the benefit of the hindsight that we have today. Watch her interviews as this shocked and grieving mother talk to a local TV station in the doorway of her home.
Take me back to what happened.
Okay, I was stopped at a red light, and just out of nowhere, this black guy came up and just opened the door and jumped in the car, and he had a gun, and he had it pointed in my side and told me to drive, and so I did. And when I tried to ask him why he was doing this or whatever, he just told me to shut up or he'd kill me. So I just kept driving. My babies were in the back seat and they were crying, and I tried to tell them everything was going to be okay. And so we went on down the road, and he told me to stop, and it was just in the middle of the road, it wasn't anywhere isolated or anything. And I said, what? I said, stop. And so I stopped, and he told me to get out, and I said, well, can I get my children? And he said, no. He said, I don't have time for that. And they were just crying. And
do you want to make a plea to, if anybody sees the story or if this person...
Yes, if anybody sees anything that looks unusual, I mean, this is a black guy with 2 white children. Obviously, they're not his. I mean, please contact somebody because I am just so heartsick over it. I miss them so much, and it's just a tragedy. I mean, I just can't believe I'm going through it, and I just hope and pray for their safe return.
Do you now? Do you really hope and pray for their safe return? Poor, young, small-town mom, carjacked by some black guy. In fact, her children were dead at the bottom of the John D. Long Lake by her own doing. Those boys' bodies would be found 9 days later. But not before Smith gave an even more convincing performance at a press conference. And I am about to play for you the raw tape. Back then, we, put out news bites and edits and clips, but this is the raw tape without edits, so that you get the real feel for the mood there and the empathy there that everybody had for this poor, grieving mom. Even the cops and the press had so much empathy for her. You're about to see Susan and her husband, David. David, who was completely in the dark about what Susan had done. She's tearfully pleading for the safe return of their boys, but I want you to watch real careful. I want you to try to spot the actual tears.
I think everybody's going to stay off. I think everyone is aware of who these two are. We have a lot of family members here today and a lot of friends who are here in support of Susan and David. I'm going to let them say what they have to say now.
First of all, I would like to say to whoever has my children that they please bring them home to us where they belong. Our lives have been torn apart by this tragic event. I can't express how much they are wanted back home, how much we love them, we miss them. They are our hearts. And who I have prayed every day. And there's not 1 minute that goes by that I don't think about these boys. And I have prayed that whoever has them, that the Lord would let him realize that they are missed and loved more than any children in this world. And that whoever has them, I pray every day that you're taking care of them, and know that we will do anything we will to help you to get them home back to us. I just can't express it enough that we just got to get them home. That's just where they belong, with their mama and daddy. Go ahead.
I would like to take the time to plead to the American public that you please do not give up on these two little boys in the search for their return safe home to us. That you continue to look for this car, these two, our children, and for the suspect himself, that you continue to keep your eyes open, and anything that you see that might would help to please call and let it be known. We ask that you continue to pray for me and my wife and for our family. But most of all, that you continue to pray, the American public, continue to pray for Michael and Alex, that they are returned home safely to their mother and father and the family members who love them so much. That you pray most of all for them, and that they are being taken care of, and that they are safe. and that they will return home safely.
I want to say to my babies that your mama loves you so much, and your daddy, these whole families love you so much. And you guys have got to be strong, because you are, I just know, I just feel in my heart that you're okay, but you got to take care of each other. And your mom and daddy are going to be right here waiting on you when you get home. I love you so much. I want to tell a story. The night that this happened, before I left my house that night, Michael did something that he's never done before. He had his pooper in his mouth, and he came up to me and he took his pooper out. He put his arms around me and he told me, "I love you so much, Mama." And he's always told me he loved me, but never before, not without me telling him first. And that was just, I'm holding on to that so much, because it just means so much. I love him. I just can't express enough. I have been to the Lord in prayers every day with my family and by myself with my husband. It just seems so unfair that somebody could take such two beautiful children. And I don't understand. I have put all my trust and faith in the Lord, that He's taking care of them, that He will bring them home to us. That's all. I can't promise anything else.
Good luck, y'all. Good luck.
Thank you.
I'll answer a few questions now.
Look how she buries her head into her husband. Look how she's being comforted. Being comforted by him, hand on her hair, the man behind them, kissing her arm. She's just basking in all of it. Just days after that Oscar-worthy garbage, another press conference was called. And this time it was the sheriff who had something to say. And I do ask you to listen carefully for the gasps.
Susan Smith has been arrested and will be charged with 2 counts of murder in connection with the deaths of her children, Michael 3 and Alexander 14 months. The vehicle, a 1990 Mazda, driven by Smith, was located late Thursday afternoon in Lake John D. Long near Union. 2 bodies were found in the vehicle's back seat. Identities are pending an autopsy. Charges against Smith will be signed by Union County Sheriff Howard Wells.
Susan Smith went to trial in July of 1995, and if there was any doubt where Susan's husband and the dead children's father stood, I want you to take a look at where he sat in the courtroom, about as far away across the courtroom from Susan Smith as he could get. Certainly not on the side of the defense lawyers or Susan. The jury deliberated for just 2.5 hours. That's all it took before finding her guilty. And then the jury spent about the same amount of time, about 2.5 hours, sparing her from the death penalty. They sent her to prison for life. But life back then, eligibility of parole, which comes tomorrow. And if you're wondering, South Carolina parole boards actually move pretty quickly. They decide yes or no, boom, Same day as the hearing. So mark your calendar. 24 hours. We're going to take a quick break. Don't go anywhere, though, because we just revisited this horrible chapter in true crime history. But coming up, the people who actually lived it, they suffered through it, including the prosecutor who put Susan Smith away. We've got reaction to her first ever shot at parole and the one critical reason that she is so damn lucky she was tried and convicted back then instead of today. That when we come back. Welcome back. We are just hours away from the moment Susan Smith has been waiting for 30 years. For the first time since she was convicted of strapping her 2 little boys into the back seat of her car and rolling that car into a lake, killing them. She's going to appear before a parole board. Our Brian Enton went to South Carolina for that hearing, and he's been speaking with a lot of people directly connected to the case, people who had a personal stake in whether or not she is released, and he's live with me now. Brian, I am so haunted by this story. I have never forgotten it. I have been waiting 30 years for this moment. But I wanted to get your thoughts on the community reaction, how people feel there.
Yeah, I mean, I think around the nation, people have been haunted and no one forgets the story. But when you come here to South Carolina, it's next level. I mean, everybody lived it here and was just terrorized by it and has tried to put it out of their mind. And now here it is again. And the parole hearing is happening. It's tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., where I am in Columbia, South Carolina. 400 people actually have written letters to this parole board saying, please do not let this woman out. Whatever you do, do not let this woman out.
Do we know if anybody has written letters saying it's time to show leniency? Do we know if people are showing up on her behalf? Like, what's on the other side of the ledger?
Well, I'm told that 5 or 6 people have written letters saying that she deserves a second chance after 30 years. She will get to speak tomorrow, which is going to be very interesting. You're going to want to hear that tomorrow night because we haven't really heard her talk besides some jail phone calls that we've heard over the years. She's going to come into the hearing via Zoom and be able to address the parole board. So we'll see what she says tomorrow.
How does it work? Like, just walk me through the actual process of the hearing.
Yeah, so 9 a.m., it's at the Parole Board building, which is right here in Columbia. They do other cases, too, so it's not just going to be hers, so we don't know exactly what order it's going to be in. But it's a media circus right now. I mean, there's media from all over the place. We have to get there at 6:30 in the morning to get a parking place. And the whole thing is very, very planned. There's a whole document that they've released about where the media will go. We know that her ex-husband will be there with his family. It's obviously going to be extremely emotional for him. Let's not forget, he wanted her to face death back then. He's going to be there. The prosecutor who tried the case is going to be there. And imagine they're going to have to sit there when she comes in on Zoom and tries to plead her case.
And David is remarried now. It'll be fascinating to hear what he says. He has made no bones about it. He wants her to stay behind bars. Talk to me about the actual prosecutor in the case who put her away. He was devastated that she didn't get the death penalty.
Yeah, he was. He wanted death. I interviewed him today. He's now a state representative. He was 32 years old at the time, a young prosecutor. And it was this small town. I mean, Union was is a small place in South Carolina. Everybody knows everybody. The police chief's wife was on the jury. She was from a well-known, sort of well-to-do family. And the concern was that if they put the death penalty on the table, people knew her family well. They knew her mother well. Would the jury at the end of the day actually be able to sentence her to death, having known the family so well? But the prosecutor's, he's been torn up about it. This is a little bit of what he told me today, Ash.
One of the top questions that I've gotten is, how did she not get the death penalty?
Well, I give credit to the defense and the way they handled the case. One thing is, We picked the jury there in Union, which is a small mill town where everyone knows everyone. I mean, I thought I had a good chance. I had the police chief's wife was even on my jury, you know. But it's a small community. You figure one thing was they would see the mother and see others, you know, the jurors would interact. So I think it was smart on the defense standpoint to not want to change venue. It's awkward as the elected prosecutor because if I ask for a change of venue, I'm basically saying the people that elected me can't be fair and impartial. So that's really not practical that I would ask for a change of venue. I think the other thing is, so the crime happened around October, and we were ready to try it maybe January or February, and the defense said they needed more time. And looking back, what I think they did well was they worked the public opinion, i.e. the jury pool, and it kind of transformed from Susan Susan the monster to Susan the victim. When I get down to Union, I go out to the lake and I see the boys pulled out of the lake. The divers found the car. The wrecker pulls it out. Two children strapped in car seats that, you know, obviously had been there for 9 days. I then go to where the law enforcement, and it was Sheriff Wells, an FBI agent, and a SLED agent. And Sheriff Wells, ironically, the sheriff in Union, was also Susan Smith's godfather, which I'll give credit maybe in part, you know, helped with the confession part. But I went and I said, can I see the confession? They said, oh, she's much too upset to put anything in writing. I said, guys, I'm going to have to try this case. I need to have something. They gave her a legal pad, and I ended up with the quote confession that says, it's the worst day of my life. Somebody I loved didn't love me. I sunk to my lowest when I let the car roll down the ramp without me. That leaves out a lot of detail. You know, so we ultimately did the testing of the vehicles to determine how long did it float. You know, how did she have options?
I can't talk over him.
And sorry, go ahead, Ash.
I talk over you, but I wanted to ask you something that he says he goes out to the lake, and I understand that there's that shrine there, and while that has never changed, something has changed. The law is about life with no parole. That has changed since Susan Smith. If she had been charged with this, with today's laws, it actually means she would not be getting this opportunity tomorrow. Can you explain that?
That's right. I mean, they changed the law in South Carolina. So today, if you got life, you would get life. You would have no option for parole. But that wasn't the case in 1995. And that's why after 30 years, you get to have this hearing. And she can have another hearing again. This isn't the end. Years from now, she'll be eligible for another hearing. I want to tell you something. One last thing the prosecutor told me, though, Ashley, that still sticks with me tonight. He said that before she confessed, when she was giving her stories of what happened to them, that she said that the boys, that one of them, the older one, was yelling, "Mommy, mommy, mommy," when she said the carjackers took them away. And that prosecutor believes that some of that story was true. He believes that as they were going down in the water, and that video you played is the water rising up, he believes that the boys were screaming out for their mother at that time, and that she just stood there and watched the car sink.
There is a special place in hell one day. Brian Enton, thank you for this. We're going to obviously follow this deeply tomorrow, every moment of this hearing, so we'll check back in with you. Thanks for doing all that incredible work. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Ash.
Still to come, moving on to this, why the money that Diddy is paying his lawyers is 100% worth it. Team Diddy scoring a rare and unexpected win today in federal court. Question is tonight, just how big is the win? Could it up his chances for bail from no way in hell to maybe just maybe? Story's next. Breaking news now in P. Diddy's case. Remember those files and papers that the investigators found in his cell when they raided the Metropolitan Detention Center? Yeah, the prosecutors have just been told, forget them. Delete them. Pretend they did not exist. Apparently, his defense lawyers knew nothing about those raids until tidbits from Diddy's notebooks and legal pads turned up in the latest government filings opposing Diddy's motion to be let out on bail. If you're counting, it's his third effort. The prosecutors claimed that Diddy can't be let out on bail because they have evidence from his cell that he was trying to influence and or intimidate potential witnesses, even buying somebody off. But Team Diddy said, hold on about that evidence there. That was privileged stuff, like privileged communications about his criminal case. Then they demanded an emergency hearing, which happened today and turned out to be the best dang thing that's happened yet in his case, because the judge ordered prosecutors to get rid of any and all photos of the papers that were found in Diddy's cell. No actual property was seized. An investigator just took pictures. And the judge promised not to use any information that came from those photos against P. Diddy at his next bail hearing, which, by the way, on the calendar is on Friday. Until then, and let's face it, probably long after Friday's bail hearing, he's going to remain, more than likely, at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn. And the hubbub over the raids and the contraband and the surveillance has made me even more curious about what goes on in those cells and those blocks during raids or otherwise. So I'm pleased to welcome back someone who knows a lot about it. Gene Borrello was an inmate of Unit 4 North, same one Diddy's in. He's a former organized crime associate who spent a total of 13 years behind bars at various facilities. Gene, good to have you back again tonight. So I wanted to get your reaction to the hearing today. The feds get material that they found during a raid, that the Bureau of Prisons found during a raid, and then the judge says, yeah, can't use it. Yeah, you're not supposed to take that stuff. Are you surprised?
No, I'm not. I mean, the judge is always going to do what's right. You know, at the end of the day, if the law is the law, he's going to go by it. But at the end of the day, inside, you have no rights, really, unless the judge rules on that. You know what I mean? They're going to rate your cell regardless if they want or not. They just come in and they ransack you. They don't have to explain why. They just do it. So if they take things that they feel could be evidence, they're going to take it.
I was super surprised that his lawyer said in a filing against this that Diddy's got a locker. They said he has a locker in which he can put his legal papers. Have you ever seen anything in 4 North looking like a locker for each inmate?
Yes, we all have lockers, but here's the thing. When they come and search your cell, you have to unlock it. I mean, that's just what it is. They have every right to go inside your stuff and search it because a lot of people hide things in their legal mail because they feel like you can't go in there, but they still go in there. They hide drugs and weapons in there and all kinds of stuff. So they have every right to go through that.
So the way that the feds say it happened is that Diddy has a bunk, and on top of his bunk was a manila folder that said legal, and then some other stuff like a to-do, things to do journal and some other papers. And they said they didn't touch the manila folder that said legal. They just shook it to see if there were drugs or contraband in there, and then they photographed the other stuff. And now the judge is saying they can't have any of it till they sort through a lot of it. The feds even said they put it through a filter team to make sure it was, safe stuff. I got to ask you about the bed, though, because I've been reading about the bed, and I'm going to show the viewers. I've got my son when he was a kid, was in karate, and this is his karate belt, and I measured it, and it's exactly 1.5 inches thick. And I'm told that the mattresses are 1.5 inches thick. Like, that's it? Is this your mattress when you're in there?
No, it's not true. No, it's not true. They're a lot thicker than that. And actually, when you have money there, you could buy extra mattresses from other inmates that have, like, when people leave, they leave you a mattress. So you'll have someone that has 3 mattresses laying on this, like, this thick. So, and they could actually make it into one. They create anything, and they could sew it together. They can make you a pillow, anything. You could pay the inmates to make you things, and they'll make it for you. So he probably has a bed this thick and then pillows and everything. Yeah.
Okay, the pillows, that's another. So this is another rumor and some press that's been out there saying that you're not allowed pillows in 4 North. Is that not true?
All right, so when they make the pillows and they do a search, they will take it and then just make them again. That's all it is.
What do you make them with?
Cotton. They get the cotton, or they get like certain material, soft materials, and they sew it into like a shirt, and they make it into like an actual real pillow. It actually works.
Does everybody pretty much have one of those, or just the lucky ones?
Yeah. No, usually everyone has one. Yeah.
Huh. What about like chores and stuff? Are you in 4 North? Are you every inmate have to do chores and have a hierarchy or anything like that?
No, there's nothing really to do in there. You basically just lay around all day. There's no chores. I mean, if you want to lay in your bed all day, you can lay in your bed all day. There's no movement really. The only time you move is either a visit or you go to medical or something like that. That's it. Other than that, you're not moving around the building. You're not allowed to. Nobody in our facility, nobody in our dorm could work in the regular facility.
What about TVs? Is there just one for the unit and everybody has to decide?
So there's two sides. So there's going to be two TVs down over here, and there's going to be two TVs down over there. It's a big dorm. So you're going to have people that sit in the back that watch the TV and people that sit in the front that watch the TV.
Okay, quick last question. Since Thanksgiving's coming up, did you ever spend Thanksgiving behind bars? And if so, do you think MDC is going to have any kind of Thanksgiving meal for the inmates?
Yeah, they always do. On every holiday, they give you special meals. They do. Yeah, Thanksgiving, they actually give you a decent meal. Yeah, actually, it's not that bad for jail. It's not that bad, yeah. But I do want to say one. They'll give you turkey. They'll give you cranberries. They'll give you a regular Thanksgiving meal.
All right, 10 seconds left. You wanted to add something. What is it?
They'll never give him bail. Never happening.
Yeah, I kind of get that idea as well.
If he does get bail,
listen.
Yeah. If he does get bail, that means he's helping them. That's it. That's the only way you get bail in the feds. Usually, that's it.
Super interesting.
That's how it.
Gene Borrello, I could talk to you for hours and hours. I said it last night. I'm going to say it again tonight. I'm calling you again. Thank you for this.
All right. Thank you.
And by the way, folks, if you want to hear more about Gene's prison stories, there's a book written about him. It's called Born in the Life, the story of an ex-Bonanno family mafia enforcer, and it's available everywhere. Still to come, Lori Vallow and the new twist in her murder cases. She's already serving life for killing her 2 kids and her husband's first wife. She's supposed to go on trial for the murder of an ex-husband and an attempted murder of an in-law, but she was a no-show at a recent hearing. Now she's refusing to speak with the doctors who'll decide if she's even competent to stand trial again. But if she isn't, can they force her to be competent by medicating her? It's been done before, and a man who's been down that road in the Elizabeth Smart case, he's got the map, and he's next. Lori Vallow was a no-show. Just skipped her hearing last week on competency in Arizona. Lori Vallow serving life for killing her 2 kids and her husband's wife before she married him. And she's got a couple more cases, right? She's got a murder case in Arizona. She's got an attempted murder case in Arizona. And they got to make sure she's competent to stand trial. It's not the same as an insanity defense. Can you actually go to trial? Do you have enough upstairs to go to trial? Do you know the charges against you? Do you understand the charges against you? Can you assist in your defense? That's it. 2 prongs. Then you're competent. And she's skipping the hearing, refusing to speak to the doctors. And to make it all worse, she's decided to represent herself. So that's happening. My next guest knows a lot about competency and how complicated the hearings can be. Brett Tolman is the executive director of Right on Crime and the former U.S. attorney who led the prosecution of Elizabeth Smart's kidnapper and rapist, a man named Brian David Mitchell. Like Vallow, Mitchell thought he was a prophet and was ordered by God to commit his crimes and was incompetent to stand trial for the better part of a decade. Brett, it's great to have you on. How hard is it when you get yourself into this situation, when you've got someone like Brian David Mitchell or Lori Vallow who are being, obstinate, refusing to go to hearings, refusing to talk to doctors? Can you make someone sane by medicating them?
Ashleigh, thanks for having me on. It is a very difficult situation to be in as a prosecutor, mostly because prosecutors rarely have to deal with it. It comes across once or twice, maybe at most, in their career. There takes a lot of study and a lot of work, and they're thinking outside the box, and that's what we really had to do. The county prosecutor had called me up. I was U.S. attorney at the time, and said that she was very fearful that she was going to lose the competency hearing, and wondered if we might want to step in and prosecute the case. I knew that we were up for a real challenge because, as you indicated, the prongs are simple that you have to prove, but what you're in essence showing the judge is you have to convince him that this individual knows the difference between right and wrong. And it boils down to that simple analysis. Does the individual understand the difference between right and wrong, and can they assist in their own defense? Brian David Mitchell, like Lori Vallow, was refusing to cooperate. So we did something very, very unusual. Myself and Michael Wellner, a forensic psychiatrist out of New York, we decided that we wouldn't deal with Brian David Mitchell. And instead, we spent hundreds of man hours investigating, interviewing all of the people that interacted with Brian David Mitchell, and we put on a trial of sorts to show that he was competent, that he did know the difference between right and wrong, and some of the stuff that we got into evidence to prove that he was competent was remarkable. An acknowledgement of following the rules while in the hospital, hiding and deceptive about some of the things he was doing. And so in the end, Ashleigh, it turned out that this was the way we got around the fact that he was claiming he was incompetent to stand trial, was showing that everything he did indicated that he knew wrong versus right and that he could assist in his own defense.
It's fascinating. I know that he and Wanda Barzee were battling at every stage medication to make them competent. Tell me if that's wrong for starters, but do you see that that's a potential pathway for the prosecutors in Lori Vallow's case?
Yeah, there's no question that there are some conditions, some psychiatric conditions in which medicine can tone down, especially when you're dealing with schizophrenia and some of the other more aggressive psychiatric conditions. Medication can have a big impact. But what do you do in those instances where medication doesn't seem to have an impact, nor do you have doctors that believe that medication is the proper treatment? That's when it becomes very difficult. And the narcissist and the individual that, is willing to prey on others and to do so in a manipulative manner are the most difficult for law enforcement to deal with, and certainly to try to show that what they're doing is very calculated as opposed to incompetence.
Yeah, Lori Vallow has a lot of that narcissistic, behavior that she's displayed in the past. So I wouldn't be surprised at this, being a real knockdown, drag them out. Brett Tolman, it's great of you to be here. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for this.
Thanks for having me.
I'm going to be following this one, obviously. We'll keep you posted if we hear anything about Lori Vallow and her decision to represent herself as well. In the meantime, I mentioned it at the top of the show. I'm going to mention it again. Tomorrow is a huge day for the true crime community. Susan Smith, after 30 years, gets her first shot at freedom. Brian Enton is live there. We're covering it. We'll have the decision and the fallout, and it all happens here. Cuomo's next.
Hello, Chris Cuomo here. Welcome to NewsNation. I know some of you hit pause after the election on the media for good reason, bad reason, doesn't matter. Let me catch you up. They're still playing the game of petty party advantage. The spin cycle is running on the buzz about Trump's latest picks, and we have some insight on that. But my take is, unless there is a major vetting issue that affects not just your feelings about the kind of person a pick is, because that's up to the president, but to the ability to do the job or to the security of this country. Unless we see that, let's just wait and see what they do. Because I believe a lot of this drama is just for drama's sake. The FEMA director got heat today